All right, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm Thomas. I do educational videos here on this channel. And today we're doing number 104 on the reciprocal system of theory. I believe this is video number 82 on the book Beyond Space and Time, which is Larson's final book. The reciprocal system of theory is a theory that was discovered by Dewey B. Larson. And this is his final book called Beyond Space and Time. This is his attempt to go into metaphysics, into philosophy, religion, and um, psychology. And um, Larson's reciprocal system is really a theory of everything. So it's something that you can plug into any subject. If you kind of become fluent in the reciprocal system, then you can figure out a way to plug it into whatever subject you choose, as long as you kind of understand the language and understand how it works. So it's a great liberating system of theory. It takes the power away from the guys in the white lab coats and the trust the science people, and puts it into your court. If you can understand the reciprocal system, then you can refute these people. Now, that's easier said than done. I've been studying the reciprocal system for like 21 years, and I'm barely fluent, I would say. um, you know, I know enough to be able to have a conversation with people, but it's a tough road. So I'm trying to make it easier, make it more accessible, but it's very difficult. I believe Larson did a great job putting this system together, and I admire his tenacity and his integrity. And but he didn't do everything perfectly. He left a few things on the table. He made a couple crucial mistakes, and he admitted that. He said that the system itself is correct. Whether I have applied the system correctly is another matter. And I could have made some mistakes, but he said, if I did make mistakes, those will come to light in the future, because other people will look at it and they will recognize those mistakes because they're inconsistent with the theory. So that's kind of where we are, and that's where kind of Bruce Perret found himself. Uh, over the last 30 years, he was one of not a student of Larson's, but just a reader of Larson's. I'm not sure if he ever even met Larson, but he, along with a few others, have done great work as well, um, kind of revising the theory, taking some of Larson's mistakes and working out the kinks, and then extending the theory into other realms as well. Now, the problem is that Larson died back in 1990, and Perret died in 2020, I believe. And so we are, we're trying to figure out a way to kind of resurrect this, and get it out there and get some other people's eyes on it, so that it does continue on. So that's kind of where I am with this. Now, the basic gist of Larson's theory, the reciprocal system, is that the universe is made out of motion, and motion is the relationship between space and time. Space and time are the same, except that they are reciprocals of each other. There are inversions of each other, and they come together in motion, and they both are multidimensional, 3 or more dimensions. They both come in discrete units. They both progress and flow, meaning that the time is always getting later and later. Space is always getting farther and farther apart. Um, they uh, they come together in discrete units. 1 unit of time, 1 unit of space in 1 unit of time is the speed of light. The speed of light, unbeknownst to Einstein, is the neutral point or the midpoint, the origin, in fact, of the universe. I would say not in fact, in my opinion. In The speed of light is the midpoint of the universe, where Einstein said it was the maximum. But in a universe of motion, it would make sense that there would be a kind of motion that is the origin of it all. And I believe that would be the speed of light. And there is an entire half of the universe that is moving faster than the speed of light. And then there is a half that's moving slower than the speed of light. That's the half we're familiar with, what Larson calls the material sector, or sector one. The half that's moving faster is the speed of the speed of light is the cosmic sector, or sector two. And a material sector body, now to move from one to the other, all you have to do is invert the relationships of space and time. So basically, over here we have three-dimensional space, three or more dimensional space in flowing time. Over here, we have three-dimensional time in flowing space. And so to make a conversion, to extrapolate, we know about sector one, we don't know about sector two, but what we know about sector one can be translated into sector two merely by inverting the relationship between space and time. Now, things in sector one, or the material sector, aggregate and bond together till they get to their most complex level, which is the DNA molecule, which contains several billion of atoms per molecule. At that level, the DNA molecule becomes eligible to be controlled by a sector 2 entity, a smaller sector 2 entity, which then can take control over the DNA molecule and turn it into what Larson calls the life unit. And then that life unit grows and develops and evolves from its single-celled organism origin until its most complex level, which is the intelligent human being, according to Larson. And that intelligent human being at that level becomes eligible to be controlled overall by an entity from what Larson calls sector 3. Sector 3 would have been called by other people as the religious, the god or goddess or goddesses or gods, or spiritual or numinous, metaphysical, beyond space and time is what Larson calls it. Sector 3 is beyond space and time, and Larson says that sector 3 is all good, no evil, all good, and it is always correct. It communicates with the intelligent human being through various channels such as ESP, intuition, religious revelation, scientific insight, beatific visions, and probably others. But since the human being is really analogous to like a single-celled spiritual organism, the intelligent human being has difficulty decoding these messages that we get from sector 3. And many times we decode them wrong. Some of them are simpler than others. Simple intuition is easier to decode than some kind of scientific insight or religious revelation that requires great amounts of preparation, concentration, and dedication. And so as we move along on our path, we become more and more adept at decoding these messages and directing ourselves toward right behavior or ethical behavior, as opposed to sector 2, which is directing us toward survival, mere survival, animal behavior. And at times those two things conflict, and it's the human being that has to use their free will to choose. Okay, now this is all covered here in this final book, uh, Beyond Space and Time, which by the title you can recognize that this is about Sector 3, what is independent of space and time or beyond space and time, whereas all his earlier books were covering space and time phenomena, such as chemistry and physics, astronomy. Those hard sciences were the thrust of his earlier work. But now his final book, which didn't come out till after he died, has to do with beyond space and time. And we are getting toward the end of this book, and we are in chapter 25, which is called Outlook for Communication. And he's talking about the different kinds of communication from Sector 3, ESP, telepathy. Telepathy is a Sector 3 phenomena, but it's more like a level 3 phenomena, a level 3 for Larson being a human being who is under the influence of Sector 3. So telepathy for him is the communication between two human beings who are both under the influence of Sector 3. Whereas something like intuition is communication directly to a human being from Sector 3, and something like prayer would be a communication from the Sector 3, level 3 human being to Sector 3. And they all have various weaknesses. In intuition, the message that you're getting is correct, but you are a weaker receiver, and so you may not be able to receive that message correctly or interpret it correctly. With prayer, you are a weak transmitter, but the receiver is all powerful. And so the receiver should be able to decode your message, even though your signal is weak. Okay, we're getting close to the end of this chapter, so I'm going to just start reading Larson, and you can pick it up from there. In this connection, now the connection that he's really talking about is the scientists. We can say simply that unless the scientist has a firm foundation of the extensive factual knowledge, unless he has an overpowering drive, unless he indulges in occasional relaxation, unless he understands something of the logic of explanation, he cannot hope for results. But if he satisfies all of those conditions, he still may not succeed if he lacks the mysterious spark. Okay, that was a quote from a philosopher talking about science and the insight, the sudden flash of insight that scientists sometimes receive. So now Larson takes over. In this connection, it is interesting to note that every argument that is raised against the reality of ESP could be used with equal force against the reality of scientific insight or against the existence of any kind of intuition. As phenomena, the spontaneous instances of ESP are almost identical with the sudden flashes of illumination reported by scientific investigators. The process by which these new scientific ideas are produced is equally as inexplicable on the basis of the laws of physical science as ESP. It is miraculous, incomprehensible, and so on, according to the authors who've had them. Of course, these negative arguments that are applied to ESP are not advanced against the reality of scientific insight, because new ideas definitely do appear, and their sudden appearance just as definitely cannot be explained by any known physical process. In this case, the conclusion is that the phenomenon exists but is inexplicable, whereas in the case of ESP, the conclusion reached by so many critics on the basis of exactly the same kind of evidence, is that since the phenomenon is inexplicable, it does not exist. A more consistent and logical attitude toward the ESP investigations is long past due. In a sense, it can be said that ESP is the basic phenomenon of which scientific insight, religious revelation, etc., are special cases. Whatever information can be developed about ESP will therefore have an important bearing on any studies that are made in these other areas. There is a great deal waiting to be discovered, and a thorough explanation of all of the possible lines of investigation that have now been opened up has a very good chance of being highly productive. In concluding this discussion on the outlook for improving intersector communication, it should be mentioned that there is one more phenomenon that seems to belong in this category, but has some characteristics that are, at least superficially, quite different from any of the other intersector communication phenomena that we have considered. This is the case of the prodigies, individuals whose abilities in certain fields, mainly mathematical games or mathematics, such as chess, is so extraordinary that it defies explanation. Here, the clairvoyance phenomenon, which is so elusive in ordinary experience, may be operating on a wholesale scale. Okay, that is the end of chapter 25. And we're going to move right into chapter 26, start up here before we end. Chapter 26 is called The Road Ahead. The fact that we exist for a purpose carries with it the requirement that we must contribute toward fulfillment of that purpose if our existence is to have any meaning. Thus, our course is clearly marked out for us. We must fashion our own ethical personality to the best of our ability, at the same time doing what we can to assist others in their efforts toward a similar end. The ultimate objective in both cases being to bring the human personalities up to the Sector 3 standard. Okay, so now he's kind of saying Sector 3 communicates with us, and the combination of all of those various communications that we receive from Sector 3 goes into what he calls our ethical personality. This is kind of a composite of all of the different ethical lessons that we've learned from Sector 3 and how to put it all together. And sometimes he calls that the code, the ethical code. And he's saying that that's really what the purpose of the universe, or at least the purpose of humanity is to get up to this level, the Sector 3 level, where the human being is, motivated by good, by ethics, by justice. Okay, this is no simple or easy task. We are all inclined to underestimate it, largely because we are still unable to realize how far we have to go, how much we fall short of reaching the Sector 3 level, even at our best. But some idea of the magnitude of the undertaking can be gained by comparing it with the task that evolution has accomplished in the long march from the first primitive single-celled living structure to the highly developed life forms of the present day. An important factor in this situation is the manner in which the gains that are made are passed on to those that follow. More than 1 billion years of growth and adaptation separate the primitive single-celled organism from the complex structures of the most advanced species of life in the world today. Yet each new individual of these present-day species must begin its existence as a single cell. A complex biological organism is unable to pass on its structure to its descendants. The best it can do is to transmit the know-how, the instructions as to how such a structure can be built. With the aid of these instructions, the newly arrived individual must accomplish the almost incredible feat of telescoping 1 billion years of development into the short span of time available for its growth and maturation. Much the same is true of the ethical structures of the members of the human race. Here, too, as in the evolutionary situation, each individual must retrace the steps that were taken by those who preceded him. Existence of a Sector 3 control unit begins with the Sector 3 equivalent of a primitive biological unit. And just as each individual of a biological species must utilize the genetic instructions passed on to him by his parents as a guide by which to replicate the evolutionary development of the species, so each Sector 3 component of a human or other intelligent being must utilize the information passed on to him by his family, his teachers, his associates, and those who speak through him. Speak to him through the written, oral, and visual media in order to build the kind of an ethical structure that is the objective of existence. Okay, we're going to end it there. That was just a ridiculous sentence that he threw together that has probably 15 commas in it. And we'll probably have to go back and look at that one again. And we will start from there when we take over tomorrow. So thank you for tuning in. And hang in with this. I know most of the material is pretty difficult. It requires a lot of background information, but it will pay off if you eventually can become fluent in the reciprocal system. All right, have a great day. Talk to you soon.